We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guest this morning talking guns, John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association. You're a lobbyist, among other things. You're a lawyer.
I'm primarily a lawyer. That's how I make a living.
You are a gun owner and collector.
Theoretically, that's the allegation.
Buy any new ones? Hey, what's the latest collection to your latest addition to your collection? Maybe a Christmas gift, or what what'd you get? What'd you want?
Well, most of the Christmas-related stuff had more to do with hunting.
Oh, okay.
Because I consider that part of grocery shopping. But I have picked up another 9mm. It's the identical version of a gun I already had in a different caliber.
And again, you're a collector. You want that. It's a neat gun to have.
Yeah.
Will you carry those sometimes?
Sometimes.
Okay. Like in the morning, will you look at the spread that you have and say, "Oh, I'll take this one today, or I'll take that one tomorrow"?
Yeah.
Or do you have a favorite you always carry?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Enough said.
Enough said.
All right. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe. What's on your mind?
Just a comment and a question for John. I was under the impression that the Republican legislators and governor all were pro-Second Amendment people. But every year they come up with some kind of off-the-wall stuff like this concealed weapon permit deal. And it just causes a lot of confusion on what a gun permit. The news media keep calling it a concealed weapon permit, when you know and everybody else should know that it's a gun carry permit. And I think the last I looked, it was 32, 34 states that recognized the enhanced gun permit as a reciprocity agreement. And the question I got is, on public transportation, is it against the law to carry your gun if you have an enhanced gun permit?
Under the current statutes, there is not a specific statute that regulates possession by a handgun permit holder of either category on public transportation. That said, we do have a posting statute, and it would be under that provision possible for each vehicle, like a bus, for example, to have some type of posting notice at the entry door that say no guns on here. There's nothing that stops the WeGo people or the bus transit people in any other parts of the state from banning guns on their individual vehicles. Maybe that's an issue the legislature ought to look at, but right now it's not addressed one way or the other in the statutes.
Let's go next to Charles. Charles, good morning. Hi, Charles.
Yes, I live in a public building, MDHA housing, and they're supposed to say no firearms allowed. What does the legislation say about firearms in public buildings like the project or Section 8 high-rises?
The current statutes, again in Tennessee, don't address specifically public housing. And it's an interesting and a complicated problem, because just like with the bus, the public housing authority could, as the owner or the manager of the property, post their property no guns allowed, just like you could an apartment complex. And then it would be a Class B misdemeanor, a crime, to violate that. What creates the interesting component, and I've not seen this fleshed out, although I'll concede it may have been addressed in some other parts of the country, is the fact that it is typically a publicly owned facility. And it raises the question, distinct from a privately owned apartment complex, as to whether a governmental agency could ban guns in a civilian's residence if they're living in that property. I've not seen that push, but I do know that current Tennessee statutes, at least under the criminal code that I deal with, do not address at all public housing.
Most of the public buildings downtown here, right around our station, the Capitol, all that, have limits on weapons, don't they?
By statute, only schools and court buildings.
Okay, court buildings. Now, what about the Capitol, the Rotunda?
The Legislative Plaza, if you're a handgun permit holder with a permit, they'll let you in the plaza, the legislative building, with your handgun permit. I've been there, done that. The Capitol itself, and keep in mind the legislature's sessions, their public debates are in the Capitol, is really under the control of Lee at this point. The Capitol by statute is not off limits, but Bill Haslam and Lee so far have both prohibited civilians from having their weapons in the Capitol building itself.
Yeah.
So you can carry to meet them and sit in on the hearings in one building, but if they walk across the street to actually vote on what becomes law, you can't go there. And they've made no arrangements for where to leave the gun.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you got to go back to your car.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Exactly.
Right. All right, let's go next to Mark. Mark, good morning. Hi, Mark.
Hey, how are y'all today?
Good. What's on your mind?
I have two questions, and it's just a clarification. Number one, if you walk up to say a restaurant or a convenience store, and it says no guns allowed, but it does not have that regulation number, can you go ahead and walk in there without fear of being arrested? And the second one is, if you pull into a restaurant and you got your gun on you and you leave it in a locked car, is that sufficient, or do you have to lock it in the glove box?
Yeah, those are two good questions. Under current Tennessee law, any property owner or manager, and the specific statute I'm talking about is Tennessee Code Annotated 39-17-1359. Anybody can put up a sign that says no guns allowed on this property, in this building, or on the property. If they do that, the sign has to meet certain specific standards that change every few years for what the sign has to look like. So it has to have the emblem of a gun, superimposed over the emblem of the gun, has to be a circle slash, it has to be red, the slash has to go in a particular direction, and then there has to be verbiage underneath that, and the whole sign has to be at least a minimum size so that it can't be a postage stamp over in the corner.
You can see it.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
And if they meet all of those standards and you go in and violate that standard, that property, then it's you can be arrested, charged with a Class B misdemeanor. It's up to a $500 fine. You're going to have court costs, and your weapon's going to be lost under the forfeiture statute. Now, if there's a sign up and it doesn't meet all those standards, it's treated under a different statute that we refer to as criminal trespass. Just like when you see a sign that says no shirt, no shoes, no service, they have to ask you to leave if the sign is defective, and then you have to refuse to do so, and then when you refuse to do so, it's when the crime is committed and you can then be arrested. So that's sort of how that plays out. But the signage issue is a big problem because there are businesses all over the state that have the wrong signs up because they've got the old signs up.
And then as far as it gets to the question of guns left in vehicles again, and he was asking if you know that building, you see it, all of a sudden you have your gun, and so you have to leave it in the vehicle if you're going to go in, unless you're going to just drive back home.
Right.
And I know you strongly suggest, don't just leave it there in the seat next to your, passenger seat.
Don't drive a convertible and leave it on the dash.
Right, exactly.
The law doesn't require that it be left in a particular way under the circumstance he gave, but under the vehicle transport statute, which lets you overcome posted properties by parking in parking lots, the weapon has to be secured in the vehicle, which means the vehicle has to be locked, so you can maybe put it under the seat or the glove compartment or in the console or in the trunk. If you're on a motorcycle, you might put it in the saddlebags, but if you're going to operate under that statute, it's got to be secured, whatever that means, to or in the vehicle.
Yeah. Have a plan in place for that, right? If you're a gun owner, shouldn't you have something? And now you're an advocate, if you can, to get one of those, gun safes.
Yeah.
Whether it's for that situation or whenever, for some circumstance, you got to leave your gun in the car. Just, put it someplace where it's going to be hard for someone to get if they break into your car.
That's correct.
Let's just assume, because if you put it just, underneath the, the seat or something, okay, it's out of sight. But if someone breaks in, they're moving around, you're going to find it.
And make an effort to try to go to restaurants and venues that don't post, because the best place for a gun with a permit holder is on their person. It's the most secure, best place to have that gun as opposed to in a vehicle, which can be stolen.
I know people who want to have the weapon with them for whatever their reasonings are, and they call ahead to certain places to find out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where they frequent, if it's one that's allowed. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, more of your calls if you're on hold. Talking with John Harris of the Tennessee Firearms Association right after this. Stay with us.